Hello, today is September 21st, and if you're here for global content strategy, delivery is critical to success. You are in the right place. My name is Scott Abel. I'm going to be the host of the show today and your MC, handling things in the background and taking questions from the audience at the end of the show. But right now, I'm doing a few little commercial announcements. One is we've got this great thing called the Insiders List, and if you can join it at thecontentwrangler.com, you will get exclusive access to members-only content, access and sneak peeks to new software tools, and invitations to in-person events like conferences, where there's sometimes a discount, and free virtual events like the one you're attending today. Today's show is brought to you by Zoomin Software. Zoomin helps organizations deliver content on demand across all customer touchpoints quickly, easily, and precisely. Global brands like Jive, ServiceNow, Hitachi, and Cisco trust Zoomin to deliver their content to documentation portals, knowledge bases, call centers, search engines, customer communities, and to devices that are part of the Internet of Things. If you'd like to learn more about Zoomin and their offer, and maybe even request a demonstration, you can do so at zoominsoftware.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Content Rules, a professional services company providing content development, optimization, and global readiness services. Whether you need extra writers, editors, or illustrators, or you're just getting ready to go global for the first time, Content Rules can help. Check them out on the web at contentrules.com. All right. We're also going to give away 5 copies of The Author Experience by Rick Yagodich, one of our 7 now books in the Content Wrangler Content Strategy series from XML Press. If you're not a winner, you can check out the books at your favorite online bookstore. Search for the Content Wrangler Strategy series or go to xmlpress.net. We're also going to produce 5 more books in this series in the coming months, so look for them soon. A few housekeeping items. Yes, you can ask questions using the Ask a Question feature on your webinar viewing panel. When you do so, you type a question to me, and I will queue them up at the end of the show and ask the presenters with the time remaining to answer as many of those questions as possible. Today, there are no polling questions, so we can skip that. We'd like you to do one thing, though, on the way out the door. If you'd use the Rate This functionality on your viewing panel to rate the quality of the presentation today, the quality of the materials presented by both of our presenters, that would be great. They love to get feedback, and I know that you like to share it. There's some attachments and some links under the Attachments button on your webinar viewing panel. You can check out some of the materials that are provided by our presenters today. Also, there's a recording. It's the most common question we get. Is this show being recorded? And the answer is yes. In fact, if you return to the URL that you're using right now to view the show after it's over, you can see a recording of it. There'll be some embed code, and you can link to it in other places and share it with others, and we hope that you do. All right, let's welcome to the stage our first presenter, or actually one of 2 presenters, Joe Gelb. Joe, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Scott. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Where are you broadcasting from today?
I'm broadcasting from Santa Clara.
And that's far away from home today. Are you here for some other events as well in the United States?
I'm visiting some friends and customers, as well as attending conferences.
Excellent, excellent. And our second presenter today, Tim Steele, are you on the line?
I am. Hi there, Scott.
Hi, Tim. How are you today?
I'm fine. How about you?
It's good. It is so good to have you on the show. This is your first time on the Content Wrangler show, and we're glad to have you here today.
It is. It's like the radio where they say, I'm a frequent listener but first-time caller.
Yes, I do remember that, actually. Where are you broadcasting from today?
I'm also in Santa Clara today.
Excellent. Well, and I'm here in sunny San Francisco, and I'm going to pass the baton to both of you gentlemen and put myself on mute so you can guide the rest of the presentation. I will rejoin you should you need me at any time, and if not, at the end of the show, I will rejoin you to take questions from the audience.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you. This is Tim Steele. Joe and I are going to spend a little time talking about the importance of that final step of your entire content development process. Even if you're getting great content to the wrong people, then all your processes, talent, and hard work will have far less impact than if you provide the right content to the right people when they need it. Of course, maybe we should start with a high-level definition of global content strategy. So global content strategy is a structure for managing all your content that's consumed by people who speak or read languages other than the source. Notice I obviously didn't say who read languages other than English. If your content is developed in one language but consumed by people who speak or read a different language, then you need a global content strategy. We're focusing today on a very narrow aspect of an entire strategy, just the delivery piece. But an entire global content strategy will help ensure you're addressing the concerns that always come with such an effort. And these come down to the same problems we always have with content. We need to save money, we need to save time, and we need to improve content quality. Joe, would you like to add something here?
Yes, thanks, Tim. So the reason why you care about the content strategy is because, in the past, when customers or companies were competing, the main competition was around products, a better product, better service. These days, the shift is turning more and more towards customer service or customer experience type of outlook. And that is, significantly changing the way we're thinking about distinguishing our products and distinguishing our services. So if we look at some statistics about the shift to customer experience, we're seeing that about 93% of corporate leaderships or leaders of large organizations are starting to rate customer experience improvements over product enhancements and even employee training. So we're seeing that from the upper leadership point of view from companies, the idea of promoting customer experience as a distinguishing factor for their company is becoming more and more desirable and more discussed around larger companies. We're also seeing from Gartner that in 2016 they projected that 89% of companies were expecting to compete mostly on the basis of customer experience. So again, the idea of pushing the customer ahead of the priority list above even product enhancements is significant. As our companies and are servicing and selling to global audiences, then the customer experience from a global point of view becomes more and more important. What we're going to be speaking today about is, about content. Our industry and a lot of you on the call are in the field of content, and we're going to be speaking about the importance of better content from a globalization point of view as part of shifting that customer experience to be a distinguishing factor for your products.
As I said in the beginning, all of your great processes, talent, and effort will be wasted if you're giving people content that's not relative to them.
So if we talk about the delivery channel or delivering great content to your customers, then we see that customers are interacting with us in a number of different ways. They're coming to our website, they're interacting with us through customer service, through mobile applications, through social media. It's no longer where we can expect to throw content on the website and expect people to come to us. Our customers are interacting with us on their terms, and we need to make sure that our content, our globalized and localized content, is there in the forum that they're expecting to see. So when we talk about customer experience and the touch points in which we relate to our customers, so it's divided into basically three sections or three categories. The first touch point set of touch points is the pre-sales phase, where customers are learning about your products, they're searching about information on your products, researching, comparing to your competitors, and then making a decision to purchase. Then we have the immediate post-sales phase, where customers are using your products, they're getting help, they're sharing and personalizing. Okay? And then we bring them into the inner circle of trust, evangelizing your products, recommending to friends, and then hopefully repurchasing. And each of these touch points where we relate to our customers can happen in a variety of different areas, whether it be on our site, whether it be in a physical store or through a call center, through social media, etc. Now, what we've done is we've highlighted the areas where great content can provide a critical role in this customer experience in these various touch points. So we break down the delivery touch points, meaning we spoke earlier about how customers are coming to us in various different forums, in different ways, and we need to deliver content in their, where they're looking for it and where they want to be found. And we talked about the different ways and aspects how we communicate or we interact with our customers. So that really boils down to a particular delivery touch points. That might be search engines. Someone goes to Google and does a first level search, or does a search on your website or some other aspect of your web assets. It's through a documentation portal, meaning folks who are looking for particular product content through documentation. It might be through a knowledge base or call center, where generally support-related information is posted. Okay. We have the customer community, where folks are trading ideas about how to use your products and recommendations, a forum or a discussion type of concept. And we have more and more Internet of Things, IoT, where we're able to focus on providing troubleshooting or proactive diagnostic information to the customer, or basically understanding that through some kind of mobile device and allowing the customer to find information that's directly relevant to what they're using. So we have these different delivery touch points, and we're going to relate this and during this presentation to how this meshes with the idea of globalization and providing great global content.
As Joe just pointed out, we're focusing today on delivery, so let's look at the delivery practices specifically. There are two types of best case scenarios, best practices that companies should follow when they plan their global content strategy. Some of them are internal and some of them are external. But because of our limited time today, let's just talk about the external best practices, because they're the ones most obviously recognized by your audience. External best practices are the do's and don'ts that affect the user experience. Let's look at the good and the bad and the ugly of some of these. I'll give you examples of each. So let's start first by making it very simple for customers to find the language they're looking for. Or you can make it like a needle in a haystack. There are a few ways to do this, and there's a really good way, and I'm going to show you that. But before I show you those examples, let me point out, you're not just allowing the user to select their language. When a user self-selects their location or their language, you're getting important information about them so you can provide them the appropriate content. Maybe you'll show different products or images or use different cultural references. This self-identifying process is important, so it's important to make it easy for them to do. IKEA is the gold standard when it comes to the welcome mat. When you go to IKEA.com, you're presented with this clean, crisp, concise way of finding all the global sites. They do a lot of things right on this page. The countries are organized by region. The country names are listed in both the native language or alphabet and in English. And there are no flags or other icons that change over time, become inappropriate, or cause other problems. Here's another example of a global splash screen that also shows the various countries, but there's a little twist here. The language is listed instead of the country being listed in the native language. KLM uses a hybrid approach to this. They have a splash global gateway, but it makes certain countries more important than the others for no reason that's apparent to the user, and it doesn't use native languages. Then if you were to click on that drop-down by next to other countries, it's a very, very long list. In his book, The Art of the Global Gateway, John Yunker talks about the global access sweet spot. Essentially, where on the screen you locate the button that takes a user to a global website. This global access sweet spot is in the upper right-hand navigation bar. Yeah, I know there are lots of things that compete for that space, but if you want to make it easy for the multinational customers to work with you, that's the best place for it. Here's a great example. Coke is the gold standard for international sites. As you can see here, the Change Country button is in the upper right-hand corner sweet spot. On the other hand, Salesforce hides its global gateway at the very, very bottom of the homepage. I had to scroll down at least 3 different times to get there. Don't do this. So here's some best practices for rolling out the welcome mat. I won't read all of these to you. I've mentioned several of them. But don't use flags, avoid the lengthy drop downs, etc. Again, you're going to have access to this, so you don't have to write all of those down right this minute. You'll have access to download this presentation after the fact. Now, once they're inside your site, people obviously need to be able to find what they need in their language on any device. So let's take a look at a few examples where they've done a good job or a not so good job of doing this. Well, this one seems obvious, doesn't it? Make sure your brand is highly visible for everywhere on your site in every language. But here's one. Here's an example of a company who didn't do that very well. Can you tell me who this is? It's not immediately apparent. They're called Muji. On the other hand, here's one who did it quite well, and I'll use Coca-Cola again. I don't think anybody in the world would have problems recognizing that as a Coke website. Here's some other important points, and I'm going to show you some examples of those. Eliminating what's offensive to people, including what may be specific to a region, and paying attention to what you do and don't translate. Here's some things to avoid. Hand gestures, images, and symbols. I'm going to show you some of those as well. Hand gestures have always been a problem, both in photos and in person. There are full websites dedicated to offensive hand gestures in foreign countries, so there's no excuse for putting these images in a global website. What's wrong with this picture? Wouldn't this photo just be just as effective if the model had a long sleeve shirt on that covered her belly button? That would be much more appropriate for the region that this is being presented in. On the other hand, something very effective here is to celebrate a regional holiday using colors and symbols or imagery that's meaningful to the people of that area. And be careful of other types of symbols as well. For example, we often forget that our blue mailbox is certainly not a worldwide ubiquitous symbol. So these are some of the external best practices that affect the user experience: navigation, ease of use, cultural sensitivities, and branding. But remember, all the correct imagery, branding, and navigation won't matter if you're serving up the right content to the wrong people. Now imagine that you knew all of these things listed on the screen about a visitor to your website. If you knew these attributes, or maybe different ones for your audience, you could provide them with really personally relevant content. Joe's going to describe how that's possible.
Great, thanks, Tim. So if we move from global to more personal, then when someone's coming to your site, we may know now about their geographical location, as Tim was mentioning, and be sensitive to that. But now that they're getting to your site or getting to some aspect of, as we were talking about before, either your forum or wherever, to try to find information, they're coming with a particular role in their organization or as a consumer. They're coming with a particular goal, something they're trying to do, and they're coming with a particular context, a particular product that they purchased, or a particular product or service that they're thinking about purchasing or using. So with that role, goal, and context, they're coming to you, and they're coming to your site, and they're generally coming to look for information. They're coming to look for answers. Okay. Now, once someone comes in, either from public site or through some kind of authentication, but however they're coming in, we get to know more and more about this person. We know about their preferences. We can find out information about that. We can find out about what they've owned, what they've purchased from us already. We may know about their role in their organization. We talked about the the geolocation based on where they're coming from, basically other activity they've done on our site. We talk about integrated digital experience, which we'll talk about more about that later. Then we know we're collecting information about this person, but the person's coming with a role, goal, and context. Based on that information we have about them, we can segment our information into three main categories. One is, and this is really getting more and more into the realm of product content. If we're talking about consumer sites where you're selling products, or you have information about for selling or specifications of products, that's one thing. But when we talk about product content, it becomes even more important often to hide information from the user that's not relevant. So it could be that we're hiding information about our product that they have not purchased, or or it could be that we're hiding information or products that are not available in their geolocation, or in a particular language, maybe, depending on what's going on. There is information that's not necessarily should be hidden, but just not useful. Again, if we're talking about from a globalization point of view and understanding different cultures and different places where people are coming, and Tim pointed out some examples of where content should be changed, or either hidden or changed based on the location. And there's information that's not useful for them. If they're coming with a particular role, goal, and context and trying to get something done, then we want to only provide the information that's useful for them. So what we really want to do is hone in as quickly as possible onto that relevant information. Okay? And all these different parameters or information that we're getting about this person, again, based on what we know in our tools around digital experience, around web content management, and the such, then we're able to really build a good profile about this person when they're coming to our site. Again, whether they're coming from a public profile or logging in, then we're getting information about them. We're able to feed them the most relevant content as quickly as possible. Now, when we talk about improving the customer experience via content, so we have basically two aspects. There's the answers, which we're focusing on until now, meaning someone's coming and wants an answer to get something done, either how to use a product that they've purchased, or how to get help, or answers about services or products that they're thinking about purchasing. Okay, and getting them those answers as quickly as possible really is the name of the game. On the other hand, there's engagement. So we want to engage those customers. Customers or potential customers are coming to our site, coming to our community, coming to our knowledge base. Okay, they're interacting with us, and we want to engage them. So we want to use the reason that they come looking for answers as an enabler to engage them and help build a relationship with them. And we'll talk about some ways we can do that. Okay, now when you think about it, answers and engagement seem like they can be mutually exclusive. On the one hand, someone's coming to our site, and we want to give them the answer as quickly as possible and let them go home and let them finish what they're doing and leave. On the other hand, getting answers or looking for answers is the brain coming to our site, and they're perfect, or they're good opportunities to actually engage with those customers or their prospective customers. So what we want to do is, on the one hand, get them the answers as easily as possible and provide that positive experience. And on the other hand, use this as an opportunity to engage them and allow them to discover other information that might be relevant to them, discover other products and services that might be relevant to them, okay? And generally build a relationship with their prospects. So enabling answers engagements boils down to 6 specific realms of functionality that we want to enable. Number one is search and SEO. Again, using the top-notch or the best-of-breed search ability and SEO tactics to get the customer or prospect to the information they want via search. The second is personalization. That's starting to reach out between the answers and the enablement and the engagement, where when they come in, allowing them to personalize their experience. Again, one major aspect of personalization is what we're speaking about before, of getting that information, the answers that are most relevant to what they're looking for, based on that role and goal in their context, and we know about them. So that's personalization. And also allowing them to give feedback and maybe choose content and profiles or favorites of information that's most relevant to them. And there are other different features and functionality that go along with the idea of personalization. The third realm is collaboration. Okay, and that also helps us to both give better answers and engagement. Collaboration is where we encourage our customers and our prospects to collaborate with us and to learn better about our products, and also to make the customer experience around the content even better. When customers are able to give us feedback or to contribute content about our product and our services, then that's generally positive, both for them as part of building an engagement or building a relationship with them and giving them buy-in into your products and services, but also allows them to other prospects and customers to get information from other users. The fourth is gamification, and that moves more into the realm of the engagement, using gamification techniques to encourage collaboration, encourage feedback, encourage usage of our site and usage of other information that we're providing to them. The fifth is content updates, allowing our users to go ahead and sign on to receive notifications for content updates. That first of all allows them to constantly get information that's relevant to them, okay, because they're signing on for particular information. Also allows us to understand more about who they are. So as folks are requesting particular content updates, we're understanding more and more what they're looking for, what's important to them. It also gives them more and gives us the opportunity to invite them to our site and bring them back to engage with them further. And the sixth is recommendations, allowing or providing recommendations around content. I mean, generally with sites, if you go to very large kind of consumer product sites, whether it be Amazon or Zappos or whatever it's going to be, we very often see in the consumer world trying to recommend to us products, accessory products, or products that other folks have purchased. In the realm of content, it's also very similar. Content that is a recommended content that may be useful to them based on the questions they're asking, based on the searches they're asking, based on the topic that they've landed on. Whether that be related posts, for example, maybe we can recommend to you if I'm a documentation site and I'm looking at a documentation topic, I can recommend to our users, maybe you might be interested in this discussion going on in a forum. You might be interested in some information or some service information or bulletin information on our knowledge base. You might be interested in other accessory products or information that leads to purchase of other services and products. So content recommendation, again, is very important in the consumer world, but we're seeing more and more usage of good content and content recommendations as a method for engaging and building those relationships with our customers and prospects. You might be asking us, very good, how are we going to get all this done? So in the past, when we've been talking about websites have generally been run by WebCM or Web Content Management Systems. Okay. Now the move is more and more towards what's called digital experience. Digital experience is really combining a lot of an engagement with the customer in different web assets above and beyond just the website. Okay, and linking all these experiences together in a way that, again, can provide these answers and this engagement with the customers. We're talking about the realm of content. So content has specific challenges in the realm of digital experience. Okay, content or product content is often relatively complex. It's structured and also complex. It often has a lot of relationships with other content and other products. Okay, a little bit more than product sites have. It also has content spread out across different touch points, like we spoke about before, and we'll speak about again. Okay, and also the product content has what's called a long tail. So whereas marketing and WebCM is based around the idea of short-term marketing campaigns, okay, and very quick, almost minute-to-minute, metrics about what customers, who's coming to our site and what they're interested in. So product content has a long tail. This is content that's going to stay around for a long time, both for new products, both for old products, linking the products to the right content, using that content to expand usage or expand purchasing of new products. So that long tail of content has specific challenges that we're trying to, we need to address. So when we talk about an intelligent content hub, we're talking about about a vertical solution basically for digital experience. Intelligent Content Hub allows you to upload or provide your formal content, product content in a content cloud. That content cloud allows you to push and provide information across all those various touch points that we spoke about before. So whether we're talking about documentation portal, which may be part of or linked into your website, whether we're talking about customer community, which is often a separate web platform driven by companies like Jive or Lithium, where customers or folks are discussing about the products, getting information and recommendations. We have the knowledge base and call center. Call center often is used by our internal service representatives, okay, which are also important and consumers of content. And we have the IoT applications, which are not a website, they're not customer communities. They are, particular applications possibly that are sitting on mobile devices that are able to get content, or we want to use them as enablers of getting content that's very focused based on who's, the hand that's holding that application, the hand that's holding that device, what they've purchased, what they're looking for, and the environmental conditions that particular person is experiencing right now. So I can push content from my cloud to a person based on what their experience, whether it be proactive troubleshooting or whether it be recommendations. So we have the Content Cloud, which allows us to push or provide content in all these different touch points, again, where our customers, where our prospects are looking for us and need those answers. The Content Hub has a number of different characteristics. The Content Cloud has, number one, generally based on modular topic-based content. Okay, the days of producing large PDF manuals and throwing them over the fence or over the FTP fence onto our website and allowing people to download them, those days are over. The days are over for a number of different reasons. Number one is because folks just don't have the patience to download and start sorting through a large PDF. The days are over also because the folks that we're collaborating more and more with, those marketing folks, okay, those marketing folks who are understanding that your product content has a lot of value from a marketing point of view, not just from a service point of view and a sales point of view, but also from a marketing point of view. So those folks they want metrics and information about who's accessing particular concrete pieces of content. So just like we want metrics and analytics about a web page that describes a particular product or a particular version of a product, a particular model of a camera, how many people are interested in this camera, how many people click they want to purchase to buy, how many people are making reviews, all these different things. The same goes for your content. When someone's sending a page of a specific answer, a specific topic of information, we want metrics. We want information about who's going to those, how many people are going to that page, who it is, what their activities afterwards, whether they're giving feedback, whether they're clicking from there into another topic, whether they're clicking from there to go and purchase. That information is very important. So modular topic-based content is no longer, productivity benefit for documentation groups or marketing or training groups. Modular topic-based content is a business imperative for putting content on your website. Now that content is classified using taxonomy facets. And consumer websites have been using taxonomy and classification for a long time, for years. That's their bread and butter of how they quote unquote tag up their content, which is product information. Okay. What we're doing in the product or the content industry or the content field is we're doing the same thing. We're starting to create taxonomies and using those taxonomies to quote unquote mark up or tag up our content, that topic-based content, and classify that in a way to provide those answers. If we think about what we were just talking about before, about providing the most relevant information as quickly as possible based on the role, the goal, and the context. So that classification is the enabler which allows us to point the right information to that customer or that person based on what we know about them. Faceted and full text search obviously is very important as part of the Content Cloud and the digital experience, allowing folks to go in and search using high-end search engines, auto-suggest, and the faceted search that we mentioned before. Content entitlements ties in very well to that faceted search and the taxonomy classification. based on what we know about someone who's coming in. Again, who they are, what their role, goal, and context is, whether they belong to our organization, whether they're a customer, whether they're a partner, whether they're a partner in America, in the United States, whether they're a partner in China, whether they're a partner, in certain places, whether they're a customer in different locations, like we're talking about for the globalization. These content entitlements are very important, both from a globalization as well as a relevant content point of view of pointing people to the right content and withholding information that they're not allowed to see. So that's the content entitlements. The results personalization we spoke about before is allowing folks to get relevant information based on personalization, what we know about them. Okay, they may have come to our site, they log in, and we know that they've purchased particular products, and therefore we can pop up the result weighting of searches. But that goes into the realm of personalization. Role-based authentication is very important in the Content Cloud as an enabler to provide that content entitlement and that relevant information. Content recommendations we spoke about, and that's very important, both in terms of recommending content that's relevant to them, as well as discoverability of products and services they may want to, that's linked to that content they may be interested in purchasing. And of course, the reporting and analytics is very important about that Content Cloud. When we talk about analytics, that's a whole set of webinars in itself. But what we're seeing more and more is that putting analytics on our website is not enough. If our content is accessible through customer communities, and they're accessible by our service reps on a call center, and they're accessible to partners through a partner channel, and they're accessible to IoT applications which are completely divorced from our website. Okay, if we really want to get a good understanding of who's seeing the content across all these different touch points, then reporting and analytics takes on a whole new meaning, and it becomes much more important. And again, it becomes much more of a challenge than just sticking up getting analytics on what's coming to our website. So if we boil down the benefits of dynamic delivery, then we see, number one, and most important, we're trying to drive towards that improved customer experience. Again, customer experience is an important driver, an important priority for organizations these days. It's recognized at the highest levels of management. It's no longer folks like you who have been agitating for change in the organization. You've done a good job of having folks understand the importance of customer experience, the importance of content, and improving that customer experience from a content point of view is very important, and a benefit of this dynamic delivery or this content hub we've been speaking about. Reducing customer effort of finding content, reducing customer effort of using your products because they have better access to answers, quicker access to answers. That's a business benefit of dynamic delivery. Optimizing the content creation and maintenance and delivery by getting feedback and analytics around your content and allowing you to optimize that content and maintaining that content is also a very important aspect of the Content Hub and the digital experience. Reduce support costs for the people who are counting the beans in your company who want to get benefit by reducing costs. So content, better access to content, better access to answers, reducing the number of clicks that it takes for your customer to find an answer. That has direct proportional effect on reducing the number of people who are going to pick up the phone and call. Increasing employee and customer engagement. We've spoken about engagement as an important factor along with answers. We want to provide those answers, and this Content Hub, this dynamic delivery, allows us to have better ways of engaging our customers around the content and using those as a way to jump into a better engagement around our products. Secured content delivery with role-based permissions is very important for most organizations. The vast majority of organizations that we work with, most of their content, or a large portion of their content, is actually locked down. It's not publicly available. It's very strictly controlled which content is available to public, which content is available to customers, which content is available to partners and internal employees. Secured content delivery with role-based permissions is a very important aspect of the dynamic delivery experience and the digital experience. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to some questions.
Excellent. So we've got a first, I would say to the audience members who joined us late in the show, if you missed my instructions, you can use the questions button on your webinar viewing panel to leave a text-based question that I will prioritize, and based on the time allowed, we will take as many questions as we can. So far, we've got all kinds of questions. In fact, we've got a couple questions about global issues. So Tim, what about time zones? And can time zones be something that we need to localize? And if so, could we put them in a drop-down menu, Joe? Could we localize them and remain, or should they remain in English? What do we do? Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is Tim. That's a great question. You know, I've never seen a time zone drop-down menu localized. But I think having a time zone or city in English and in the local language would be really helpful to many people. Even better, I'd like to see such a drop-down list show up in my language, like the whole thing, based on what I've selected when I entered the site. Now you've got me wondering why everybody isn't already doing this.
That's why we've got smart people in the audience asking great questions. And here's another one. So this is about multilingual search engine optimization. So this is basically, I think, a Joe question, but also, Tim, certainly you can chime in. The question was, when we do this kind of work and we start to do it in multiple languages, shouldn't we also be concerned with SEO in the other languages, so the destination languages? Joe, what's your thought on that?
Hi. So I'll defer to Tim on that for that particular question.
The answer is yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason that we should give up search engine optimization just because we're translating into multiple languages. It should be part of your global content strategy, something that you think about early on. And we don't have time to dive into exactly how that would work today, but absolutely it's something that you need to consider as well.
And is this one of those things where once you planned out your strategy and you decided what words you're going to use, because Content Rules, the company you work with, they specialize in helping companies move to global language and to manage terminology in a strategic way. So we're not just managing terminology so people can understand it and translators and translation systems can understand and process it, but we're also doing that so that people who search in the language they prefer, which happens to be their own, can actually find the content they're looking for. And is that the main challenge that we miss when we don't think about that?
It is. I mean, the whole idea of SEO, right, is search. And if people can't find what they need to find in their language, they may not know what words to use in English or what terminology we used in English. So we absolutely have to consider terminology in other languages. It's a big deal. It's not necessarily easy, but it's important. It's well worth the effort.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing to consider also, thanks Tim, is a lot of from a searchability point of view and the globalization point of view, some languages have particular challenges around searchability. For example, Japanese, Chinese, and having good search engine and search SEO around those particular languages is also very important when you choose your tool set.
Here's a question for you. There's a lot of talk about an API economy. In other words, being able to attach different kinds of software systems and databases together in order to prevent, I guess, reinventing the wheel. Joe, do you see this as kind of what you've been describing? We're hooking together things like content with semantic value, with a system that understands it, with another system that understands who we're talking to. Is that where we're going toward now? It's no longer let's craft everything ourselves, but maybe let's figure out how to plug things into one another and benefit in that way?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's definitely the direction we're moving in, integration with different systems. I think that as we're getting more smarter about understanding who's coming to our site, who's interacting with us in our products, all these different systems. But before they have their own smarts, we need to be making good use of those, leveraging all of those to provide a good story around a good comprehensive story around the content, and that the semantics, is a major portion of that. A lot of companies are talking about corporate taxonomies, and that really leads into the idea of semantics and semantic searching and keywords and everything else we've been talking about. So yes, I think that's very important.
We had a great webinar yesterday with Abby Covert, who is an information architect and definitely a guru in that line of work. And one of her things that she was talking about was that there's no such thing as one label, that it's all about perception. And so we've been talking a lot today about personalizing content and giving people the experience that they want, an exceptional one that's relevant to them. Are we moving toward a time when we're going to be able to feed this content into things like intelligent agents, so programs that gather information and perform tasks without human involvement at the time of the request? Is that what we're setting people up for, Joe, when we've done it, the work that we need to do to have an intelligent content and a hub to kind of handle all those tasks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely. When we talked about the Internet of Things, we're able to push content to a device based on what we know about what's happening with that particular user, because they're using a product that's hooked up into, or a service that's hooked up into the Internet. We know what's going on, whether we can push relevant content, in real time to that particular device that the person's holding. But it also goes in the direction that you were just speaking about, in that these APIs are able to react to content, and actually we can create content that actually drives the product. So in the scenario that you're mentioning, that there's an issue that's going on, and by using the semantics and popping up the right content to the user, but also allowing that content to actually drive and push and use the product API, so actually affect change to the product or the device in question is I think that's definitely the direction we can be going in.
And what are our options? It appears to me that if we want to take advantage of machines to help us, we're going to have to do one of the two things. We're going to have to teach them, which is an expensive proposition and will involve significant labor. We're going to have to teach them where the answers are hidden within our unstructured content, or we're going to have to declare the answers as semantic pieces of content that have a match. And what I'm getting at is it seems like these natural language processing systems are popping up everywhere. Apple's new operating system, you can control with your voice. Google did the same thing this morning with their app for messaging. But it appears that not everybody in the audience understands, how is that even possible? How are those systems grabbing that information? And is it true? There's two ways to do it, that you can teach it, which is expensive and costly, or you can declare the stuff in the content and then programmatically deliver the right information.
Yeah, that's great. It's a good question. So if we think about context-sensitive help that everyone's heard about, it's been used for ages, right? So if we think about context-sensitive help on steroids, it's really going in the direction that you're talking about, because it kind of puts together the whole idea of the semantics and semantic querying. So if these products, they know what's going on with them, either through, and they're able to basically create a semantic query, right, around what's going on. Like, I am a particular product, I have a certain firmware, and I'm having a certain condition, and this is the problem, and this is who is using me, and this is where they're located, right? That can create a query or a semantic query, search query really, to the Content Hub, and pull out the most relevant content based on the tagging that the folks in the audience today have been making. So when you're the same way that you're tagging up your content, so when someone's doing a fastest search, they're going to find it. It's the same methodology of making sure that a machine is going to find that content when it does that semantic query, the natural language query, and gets back the answer based on fallback rules and all kinds of other smarts that I know we're building into the Content Hub, where applications are able to query for information, and we're always able to get them the most relevant content based on a series of rules and smarts around those semantics and around that content that's being tagged up.
And here's another question. In layman's terms, RDFA is a standard. It's a way of embedding sense and definition into a document in a way that non-human agents like machines and these intelligent devices we're talking about can read and understand the content. Now, that's just one mechanism for building in multilingual semantic web. What is the trend, or is there a trend? Are people doing it in different ways using different standards, and then they're having to bring them together and try to somehow make sense of it all, or are they creating their own vocabularies using XML. What are you seeing, Joe?
Yeah, so to RDFA, these are standards. Standard ways of creating semantics or semantic web, for example, we talked about a few years ago. Right? These are standard ways of modeling what people have been developing. So people are definitely going in this direction, and whether they choose the RDFA standard or other standard ways of modeling it, then. But yeah, we are definitely seeing that, and we encourage folks to be using standard formats, whether it be XML based or other based, to be modeling this information and modeling these semantics.
Tim, here's a question for you. What about video? What are your thoughts on captioning for each language choice, or should they be dubbing? This person is asking, and I've got a little viewpoint on that as well. Creating new videos for each language can be costly, they say, especially for smaller organizations. What are some of our options?
Again, a good question. The option of creating new videos for every language is way too expensive. So yes, dubbing is a fine answer, or captioning. The good news is that this is becoming more automated. I know of a company who can pull out language out of a video from. Let me rephrase that. They can pull out text from an image or a video that they see on the screen. So, for instance, the captioning, they could pick that up, translate it on the fly, and put it back in, all in an automated way. Now, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be far from perfect. It's machine translation, and we all know what machine translation is like these days. But it's getting better, and so we're headed in the right direction. But no, creating individual videos for every single language, it's just not practical. You'll never get the budget for that.
And if you do have budget, though, and if your content is something that can kill people or that you care about it in some way, and so there's money there for it, I've actually experienced the Voice Company, which is a company in Burbank, California, does voice-over work, which they do not call dubbing. And I've actually watched this in progress with a group of content strategists from Los Angeles. We all met there and got to watch them actually doing this work. And what was interesting is that there is a parallel to the way that we create content when we create words, intelligent content words. We say we could create different value propositions and we could tag them so we can switch them out automatically. Well, as it turns out, that's because we have a layer, right? We separate the content from its formatting. So in video, we can also separate the video from the voice. And they're recorded in different tracks, and so they can be swapped out. But what's important to know is that when we're talking about customer experience, you can't degrade the customer experience, have an amazing experience in English, and then have mediocre to not so fabulous in other languages and expect the impact to be the same. So when impact matters, what we've learned is that really it's not just about the language, it's about the actor. Do they sound the same? Is it the same voice of your company? Is it the tone that you want? When there's a human voice involved. And people pick up on those things really quickly, don't they, Tim?
They do. I mean, I think we can all think of examples where we've seen a foreign film that was dubbed, and I'm not talking about the fact that the voice doesn't match the lips moving. It just doesn't, it's not as good. Sometimes it's just not as good. And this may be a 4-star movie that everybody was raving about in the countries where the language is native, and it gets here and it just kind of falls flat. And I've got to believe that it's that translation or the redubbing layer just wasn't done as well. Even though the cinematography may be great, the voice isn't the same. It's just not working. So I think you've got a really good point. And what you're describing is really fascinating, because then you're right. You could have a file for each language, a language file that gets automatically served up when somebody says, hey, I'm coming in from this country or I speak this language, so now I need your content, and it serves up the same video but with a different language track. That's great that that's available. It makes perfect sense.
And the other track would be the caption track, right? And then which would serve both the hearing impaired and anybody who was having difficulty understanding the language. Maybe they need to stop it and read it. Maybe they want to download it as a separate file. But if we talked about that in the way that Joe talks about content, it seems like we could manage those pieces in the same kind of system and deliver them up. Joe, is anybody really thinking in that way yet? Are they thinking about using these delivery engines to deliver the right sound and the right caption at the same time? Or is this something that is definitely doable but you haven't seen yet?
That's a great question. I haven't seen it yet, but I think it's a great idea. And we definitely have people, serving up videos and tagging videos and classifying videos and embedding videos and trying and sound bites and podcasts and things like that, and using the same semantic tagging classification as they're using for the same taxonomy that they're using for their content, marking it up in the same way. But what you're mentioning would be kind of cool. I think that would be a good direction to go in.
We've got a great question now. Wondering how much local insight we need to have on the customer experience or the customer life cycle, I guess, as customers travel through their journey trying to find information. And the question is, do the stages of this cycle, do they vary from region to region? In other words, just because we think that in a Western kind of mindset, would the cycle be accurate enough to apply globally? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'll mention it, and Tim might be happy to hear what you have to say. On one hand, I think it's a great question. On the other hand, I think that we shouldn't care. Meaning, I think that if we don't know how people are going to be interacting with us, we don't know the order. We just don't know, and that's why why websites aren't just they're not good enough anymore. Leading people through a series of clicks to get to a certain thing, doesn't work. People are coming here, they're coming there, they're going to our forum, then they're jumping to their mobile device and they're doing a search, and then they're jumping down to when they're calling the help center. People are interacting with us all over the place in different ways, in different orders. We just don't know, and that's I think really the main reason why we have to make sure that we provide our content in a way that is accessible wherever, however the customer is going to need it, whenever they're going to need it, whatever form and whatever platform they're going to need it. Because I think we're just never going to know, and it's always going to be so variable.
And the last question, I'll leave a comment on it and ask the two of you, and then we'll end up the show, is there's a difference between translation and transcreation. And the question here was, wouldn't these devices that are coming out that are going to magically be able to translate everything be able to do this automatically without us having to do any more work? And my answer is absolutely not, because translation is the direct equivalent, right? A chair in this language is a chair in this language. Transcreation is actually understanding the intent of the communication and making sure it means the same thing in the other language. A great example is Amazon's show Transparent, which is a show about transgender issues. And when you start to localize that in other countries, you have to change some of the content. So you cannot rely on a word-for-word translation because the jokes won't make sense. The vocabulary words could be offensive. The laws are not the same. The common sensibility is not the same. Tim, do you see that as well, that maybe when the message requires context or some kind of specialization, it can't just be translated. It's going to need to be transcreated.
I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to marketing materials. Marketing is all about emotions and aspirational and our cultural differences. The examples that I could provide you lots of these examples on the screen, but it's a Coca-Cola site is going to look different in Japan than it's going to look here in the U.S. They just look different. They've learned through a lot of research. This appeals to people here, that appeals to people there, and it's true all around the country. I mean, all around the world. So that's transcreation. That's a piece of transcreation, at least. This is a bigger question for your entire global content strategy, but absolutely, just translating the words or the voice even, not going to be enough. Not for marketing.
No, you're right about that. And with that, we're going to end the show. We've got 5 winners of the Language of Technical Communication, apparently, is the book we're giving away, as opposed to the book I announced earlier. Carrie, Ahmed, Jamie, Veronica, and Stefan, all of you will get a notice from our assistant here talking about how you can claim your copy of the book. Today's show is brought to you by Zoomin and Content Rules, both represented here today by our wonderful presenters, who we'd also like to thank. Joe, Gelb, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for joining us.
And Tim, thank you for joining us. It was great to have you on the show for the first time. You're coming back.
Thanks, Scott.
Excellent. So thanks for everybody attending today. We really appreciate it. Today's show was Global Content Strategy Delivery is Critical to Success. Until next time, and there will be another, join us again. Have a great day. Do good work. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.